These types of stories are some of the most difficult ones to do because of my understanding of what's going on across the continent of Africa. But unfortunately, we have to talk about it. It's difficult. Listen, until we all rise up and demand accountability in our individual countries from leadership across Africa, these things I'm going to talk about will be a constant issue to discuss. When you live in a country where you slowly but increasingly see migrants from other parts of the continent trooping into your country with no sense of where they will live, ladies and gentlemen, who is waiting for them here, and how their livelihoods will be taken care of, that's a huge problem. Ladies and gentlemen, Ghana has over the last 15 years or so seen this situation across every region in the country, where women, men, children of all ages from Niger, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Nigeria made their homes in Ghana. They came in mostly on foot and therefore without any form of identification. These are people whose number one reason for embarking on such a dangerous but life-saving journey is to flee insurgency or danger. They run for their lives and they skip countries in between to land in Ghana. They live on the streets. I mean, their whole lives are on the major streets in the big cities in Ghana, from Accra, Kumasi, Takoradi, Tamale, and the rest. They are everywhere, ladies and gentlemen. They eat, sleep, defecate, wash their clothes right there in the streets. Their main occupation is begging for money. From morning till evening, they chase down people in vehicles in the middle of the roads to beg for money, and also regular pedestrians. Many have given birth right there in the street corners and live it like it's a normal thing. Meanwhile, we have the embassies of all these countries in Ghana who don't seem to be bothered about the living conditions of their own people in the streets of Accra. They don't take account of their people, not even attempt to remotely engage them in any kind of conversation. Their embassies go about just doing their own thing and actually drive past them in the streets all the time. Last week, however, the Ghana Immigration Service embarked on a cleanup exercise. They had to do this because of the influx of the numbers of these people on the streets and how they had literally littered the place. Remember, these brothers and sisters from all over these African countries live right there on the streets. Meaning, when they defecate in polythene bags, they throw them right away in the streets where they live. So the Ghana Immigration Service had to intervene and bring some form of order to the chaos happening in the capital city. They went to 11 different locations in Accra only, and they brought together 2,341 of them. They had no identification on them because they had to flee for their lives from where they came from. Now, these are the official numbers given by the Ghana Immigration Service. 2,341 people in all, 384 adult males, 525 adult females, 577 male children, and 755 female children in all these 11 locations in Accra. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the video of the exercise being played out. And in some part of the video, you'll see one of the lady shedding tears on the bus. Very uncomfortable thing for me to watch, knowing the conditions some of these people have escaped from. The other disturbing part is how their parents, their fathers and mothers, run the business of sending these kids into the streets to beg for alms and render accounts to them in the evenings. They have no interest in looking for alternative solutions for their children, and that is how it has been. They have no interest in looking for alternative solutions to their problems except for begging. Now, the vast majority of them are Muslims, and that is a fact. They go to the mosque regularly, but you don't see how the leadership of these mosques assist them from getting off these streets. Ghana is a country with free education in the public schools. We offer a national healthcare system where you pay once in a year and receive the benefits of it. And the fee for the year is just about 24 Ghana cedis, which is like $2. Now, due to how much their parents make off the begging activities from the streets on their kids, they can easily afford that money, but they choose not to. Instead, you find them using all these modern smartphones like everybody else. When they lose any part of their people, which is the saddest part, they simply dig the lands around any unoccupied idle place and bury them. It is such a hard thing to watch. However, the number continues to increase. One moment you watch on the streets, they are just a handful begging. In the next minute, you see them and the whole street is full, more than 100 of them. The problem is insurgency. You know it, I know it. The problem is religious extremism. The problem is poverty, resulting from a lack of education on modern ways to improve on your economic situation. One known truth is that their lifestyles haven't changed much since the 1950s. It's almost the same economic stories of keeping farm animals and engaging in subsistence agriculture as their main sources of income. So the moment that is cut off, their lives are completely thrown off, ladies and gentlemen. This is why we have to be relentless in forcing the hands of African leaders to be useful. We have to persist in our push for economic freedom in Africa, or else these things won't stop. These people will most likely be sent back to their home countries. But the question is, what is waiting for them on the other side? Has the insurgencies stopped? Has the ethnic cleansing, the conflict, has it ended? Has the economic situations in their countries changed? And do they have any skill set to go back and start a career with? What if they go back and get kidnapped? Do their governments give a heck? This is how bad the situation is, ladies and gentlemen. From the eastern to the western part of Africa, this is the common stories we see. The conflicts are started by all these factions, and then the poor people have to run for their lives. One time I watched a video of a group of Congolese people who found shelter in some village elsewhere in their country, and they told their story, ladies and gentlemen. They had walked for months with barely nothing to eat. They began the run for their lives when the shooting and bombings began in their village, and they kept walking in the direction of where it was quiet. The moment they heard the sound of guns, they turned a different direction and continued moving, ladies and gentlemen. For 3 months, they said, they walked not knowing where they were going. Ladies and gentlemen, if we don't wake up as a people, as black people, and push some of these rats and coons from office by force, the bombings and shootings and the runnings won't stop. All the kidnappings will continue. They don't give a heck about who dies so long as it's not related to them. You wake up to stories of 51 people killed in Jos in Nigeria and 70 Christians beheaded in a church in the Congo. Just today, 19th of May 2025, it is reported that Boko Haram has killed 57 people in Borno State in Nigeria, and 70 people are gone missing. And you expect the vulnerable to stay back in those places? They will run, and when they run, it's not about moving to the other parts of the country when they know similar things are happening there. They run out of the country as a whole. Rape in some of these places have become so common. Nobody even talks about it. Because you find some of these young girls on our streets, as young as 13-year-olds who have kids already. They kidnap them, they rape them multiple times until these kids break out and run. Who is going to help these people, ladies and gentlemen? Yet the president of these countries are welcomed in Europe and given presidential treatment when these same Europeans know very well what's going on in their countries. Then when we finally find a man for the people in the Captain Traore of Burkina Faso, these same Europeans want to remove him. Ladies and gentlemen, we have to fight for Africa, because whilst we fight for our lives, they fight for money. This cannot continue. Africa is beautiful, and we need to do whatever it takes to make it habitable, no matter where you live on the continent. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for the support we receive from you guys all the time, and for subscribing. I'll come your way with another one very soon. God bless our motherland. It's bye-bye for now.